had a little bit of an issue come up at the firm. I get an email from a lawyer's email. Hey, here are the documents you requested. A link. I click it. Boom, and my malware software pops up and is like, dangerous link. There's like duties that are imposed by the Florida statute. It requires that you notify like all of your clients, right? That there's been a data breach within like 30 days. How embarrassing.
The statute that we're looking at is 489.128. It's pretty much saying that they're not going to get paid.
Basically, no matter what they do.
It's like there was no contract.
If you're a subcontractor and you've been deceived by a general contractor into thinking that you had a contract when you didn't, they've probably violated some provisions themselves.
Yes, they have.
Use that as leverage to try to reach a settlement. A couple $100,000 in debt, right, to this pirata. One day the GC decides, look, my bottom line doesn't make sense. I'm not going to pay. But what's the law, right? Come on, bring it in with the punchline. Do they get paid?
Spoiler alert, this doesn't end well for Pirata LLC.
Welcome to the Miami Common Law Podcast, where we discuss business law and litigation as seen through Miami's entrepreneurial and cultural lens. I'm Jesus La Rosa, a Florida licensed attorney and the host of the Miami Common Law Podcast. Although this show is hosted by my law firm, La Rosa Law PA, it is not part of my legal practice. It is, however, my effort to have some fun, nerd out with my peers, and share zero-cost insights and entertainment for Miami's entrepreneurs and legal community. Our goal is to help business owners avoid mistakes and to create value for lawyers and clients alike. All right, guys, a little housekeeping. If you've not signed a contract with my firm, I'm not your lawyer. Also, laws change and jurisdictions differ. So if you've got any questions about anything we've said here today, please call a lawyer in your area. All right, with that, we'll get started. All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Miami Common Law Podcast. Today, we have a new special guest.
Melissa Corrales.
My favorite law clerk. Did I say that? No, I'm not biased. I'm definitely not biased.
You better be biased.
Thank you so much for being here with us today. Making the time, being here for the second episode. It's very special. I want to do a little bit, just because I want these episodes to be a little bit standalone, so I'm going to do just briefly about the podcast. We're here to inject a morsel of fun, a little bit of fun into an otherwise what kind of be a little bit of a grim career choice, right? This is not the bartender career route. This is not, this is not the DJ, right? I don't know why I'm in a nightclub today, but this is a little bit of a different career choice, right? And it's a little bit, litigious. It can be a little bit of a drag. And so what we're doing here is just having a little bit of fun with it, nerding out with our peers, like I said, and just hopefully creating a little bit of value for lawyers and entrepreneurs who are typically who we serve, right? So we, at the firm, we serve small and mid-sized businesses, also predominantly Spanish speaking, which is why we dubbed the episodes. And so what we're here to do, just create a little bit of value for them. So with that being said, we'll get a little bit into Melissa. So let's get back to square one. Let's put ourselves, let's go back. Let's go way back, right? Let's go
August 27, 2000. Melissa was born.
Oh we could do that. I didn't disclose Evelyn's precise age, but you can do that.
Oh,
that's amazing.
that's okay.
That's good. Listen, hey, more transparency, the better, right?
Later on in my life, this will be dated. It'll be fine.
So let's go back to the interest in law, right? I think that's a reasonable place to start. So I think we find ourselves maybe in undergrad, maybe in high school. Where does it begin? When did you think, when was the first time, right? When was the first person that told you, hey, you should be a lawyer? And it wasn't like really a compliment. I know someone did that to me. So what happened? How did we get here?
This is going to be really funny. My dad took me to Alex Hanna.
No way.
I swear. And he, I was very young, like I was a child. And he carried me, took me around the office, and Alex Hanna.
Was he a client of Alex Hanna's? How did he know Alex Hanna?
We never know if he was doing landscaping work. We don't know. It was so long ago. I just remember going through the office, meeting his mom, because his mom at the time worked there. And I don't know, se me quedó en la mente. And then
Nice. You were like, dude, I like the vibe.
But then as I got older, things change. I feel like I wanted every career. I mean, realistically, I would prefer to be Angelina Jolie right now, but this is cool too. I mean, I wanted to teach for some time. Growing up, I used to make little fake teaching plans and teach my my aunt that didn't know any English.
When in
in
life
Cuba.
would this have been? The brief teaching inspired window.
I was like 10.
Okay, starting at 10.
Yeah.
Love that. Yeah.
And then I kept going. My parents are, my mom is in the medical field. My brother's a doctor. So I thought maybe I should do that, open up maybe a family practice. I realized I was also interested in business. I was interested in too much, I guess you could say.
A familiar issue with the family being in medicine too. Mm-hmm.
Again, then I started to think about it more. I thought throughout my life what stayed consistent. And then there was Alex Hanna. There was my parents' divorce. And like things I saw through that lens that I was like, you know, the legal field is what you make it. There's so many routes you can take. It can be tedious, but you can do things like this. You can be a professor. You can work in business. Like there's just so many things that you could do that then I decided, you know, this is the route. Like it's something it's what stayed consistent throughout all my various ideas.
I'm gonna pause you there. I'm gonna bracket two things. One, the audience may not know who the hell Alex Hanna is. This guy is he's a marketing legal genius, right? I've never seen him. He's like a rare Pokemon.
Yeah.
But I'm his client because, you know, in Miami, as you do, you get tickets sometimes. And I don't know how they do it, but they disappear. Like I don't know what they do. If it's like if you have counsel on record, then whatever, it's too much of a pain. Like they just dismiss the case or whatever. But this guy just gets it done, you know, just gets it done. So that's one thing. And he's everywhere, Alex Hanna. The other shout out. And the other is this idea about your parents' divorce, which I love. I feel like very personal. I bracket it not because I necessarily want to speak about your parents' divorce, because I do know it's personal, but because we share that in common, right? So as you know, you may not know this, but I had originally applied as computer science.
No, I remember our interview.
That's right.
We clicked so well on just the fact that...
Yeah, we like broke down.
Yeah.
Right. So we're like, what the hell? We're like the same person. You're like the female version of me. What's going on here? So I was computer science, and then my parents were like very distinct people, right? So my mother, like your family, is a medical professional, and my father was a professional athlete in Cuba, and then later on did various odd tasks when we moved to the United States, and you know he did well, but you know not the same type of person, right? He's like your typical cubanazo, like I'm gonna figure it out.
That's the exact life experience I had.
Right, like you know he has a saying that's like my favorite, which is like lo que yo no se me lo imagino. Like, that is you. That like captures you. There's so much wrong with that, but that captures you. Anyway, so they divorced, and I was just so grateful for the system that was in place. I was like, look, here's like an arena where two people who would otherwise maybe kill each other, they can come have like a disinterested third party that doesn't care about all their BS and all their drama, and tell someone like my mom, you're going to share custody and you're going to pay alimony. And I don't care what you think about that. And you're going to do it for 12 years.
My girl.
Right? And so I was just like, man, that's meaningful, right? That I think so often as professionals, we're I mean, what are we looking for? Right? We're looking for meaningful, purposeful work. And as young adults, we're thinking like, I know I was thinking, where in society can I create value? And I was drawn to technology. I was drawn to tech, and I just didn't want to be the guy they called at 3 a.m. when the servers blew up. Do you know what I mean? I value like my personal time too much too.
Yeah.
And I knew some IT people, and I knew some people in like CS. I also didn't like to code. And I was like, man, I love this attorney stuff, this 9 to 5 thing. I think
you'd be so bored just because you'd be behind a computer, and you need your spice to your life. So I feel like that would have been. Exactly.
So going back to your personal experience, so the parents' divorce, was it a similar experience? Like you were like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, of course. Again, same thing. My mom was a doctor in Cuba. She's a nurse here. My dad is a Guajiro in Cuba. He's a Guajiro here. Not much has changed there. Both very financially stable people, very good with business, very, whether they're smart by book or by street, they both bring a lot to the table. It wasn't there. Not together. Together, no sirve.
Right.
But, I just getting through that experience and then going to court to see your parents both argue, both have very good points, both are valid in their, in their reasoning, But at the end of the day, like there has to be some sort of medium, and they were never going to get to that by themselves. So it's like you said, there needs to be a neutral party, someone there that can find that balance for them. Because if not, both sides are suffering, the kid is suffering. And although I do not want to touch family law,
Nor
like
do
a
I.
10-foot
Nor do
pole,
I. Yeah, yeah.
I don't like areas of law that I feel I would take home with me. So
Interesting.
So yeah, and then
It does feel like family law is a bit like you get a little bit in the drama. You start to get those 3 a.m. calls like, hey, the husband is here with the kid, or, you know, he's not following the parenting plan, or, you know, and it's like, you know, it's like, I feel like that in criminal law are a little bit too personal.
You need to be able to, you know, you want to have a good relationship with your client, but you need to remember that is your client, and they need to understand that you're their attorney, you're not their bestie, and you need to, like, you know, put your boundary, because if not, I feel like that's when all the other issues come up, and then that's when you get affected by it, and there's really no reason for you to do it, because you're providing a service, you're doing a job, not you're not a therapist, you're not. But
Lord knows I have some cases now where I'm like, I'm all in, I'm invested. I wake up thinking about the client. I'm like, well, maybe I should file this. Maybe I should that. But I think it's okay to have boundaries and have that be something that you choose to do instead of it being the default. Like you're going to have no life and your client's personal life is going to bleed into yours and stuff. So, okay. So that takes us to what, like, beginning of undergrad, you start at FIU. Did you start as philosophy? I know eventually you did study philosophy. Did you find your way there, or did you start there?
I did.
What did you start as?
Nurse.
Oh my God! So you come to FIU, you're still thinking, I'm gonna be like mom, I'm gonna be a doctor or something like it.
And then I realized bedside, not my thing. Not gonna do that either. Again, the hospital setting is a little bit too personal for me. I feel like I feel what everyone else kind of feels emotionally almost. So I wouldn't be able to be in that setting and then go home and be okay. So I moved from that. Again, I was very interested in business aspect of things. I love organizing things, putting pieces together, talking to people. So I thought perhaps since my brother was a doctor, maybe I'd run the office whenever he had his practice and we can, you know, make it a dynamic duo. Those plans changed too because I don't know. I again came back to an attorney can do that too. They can do all types of things. Why would I limit myself to a business degree? And then I researched obviously how to become an attorney. A quick little Google search because there was no AI at the time.
Yeah, 10 blue links. That's all you had, man. My God, cavemen back then. How were they living?
I don't know.
Yeah.
And then nothing. We settled on philosophy after that because I took philosophy. Obviously, I think in undergrad you have to take specific classes. That was one of them. I enjoyed it. It was my type of thing. Reading, deciphering, writing. Just when you read that type of language and those types of stories, it feels like a storybook type of thing. I don't know. But
listen, so I get it. So I as you know, I also studied philosophy, and we have an academic advisor there in common, Kenton Harris, who was the philosophy department head.
Shout out Kenton.
Shout out Kenton. Yeah, absolutely. And he was an absolute beast. And I mean, probably a similar thing happened to you, which is FIU's sort of university core curriculum. If you're in the social sciences, at least when I was there in 2012, 2013, one of them was ethics. You had to take ethics. And that's when Kenton hit me with the welcome to the wonderful world of philosophy. And it was amazing because it was very intuitive to me. He would describe let's say a field of thought in ethics, whether it be like utilitarian thought, right? John Stuart Mill and subsequent people who study utilitarian, which is just the pluses and minuses, right? And so we all do this in our life. It was an intuitive theory. It was like, well, cost benefit analysis, like like, and I was like, oh yeah, I totally do that. Yeah, I'm a utilitarian, And then he's like, no, but then Immanuel Kant, and I was like, oh man, but yeah, there is like big things. And so I would come in a class, and that was like one of the only professors at FIU where I was like, I would come to class and I was like convinced that I was that thing, and then I would come to class the next time and I was like, no, those dudes are wrong. These guys have it figured out, right? And so that was one of those classes where I almost didn't have to study because the material it felt like it was just absorbing on its own. So I would just show up,
those are the
and
best.
and you just like show up for the test, and it's like, oh, I got 100, and everybody's like, oh man, you must have. And the nurses, like the would-be nurses in the class, would struggle. Like, man, I hate this philosophy stuff. And I think it's because they were trying to memorize, right? Like they weren't really interested in the material.
You have to absorb it or like throw it back out, chew it up again.
Yeah.
And kind of just sit with it and just let whatever you're thinking come out on paper. You know, it's not the type of thing that you need to, people are trying too hard, I guess is what you could say with philosophy. Sometimes you have to just internalize the information and see what you come up with, because there is realistically no right answer. Like there's definitely like things that don't make sense, but there's no right answer. So you can understand it differently than someone else and not be wrong.
Right.
Which is what I loved about philosophy too.
There was a piece of it that was like storytelling. It was like, here's this guy and here's his sort of unified theory about how this works. And so eventually the way I would study for finals when I got like into upper level classes is I would try to read the firsthand stuff, and then I would meet with guys that I respected, and I would be like, all right, you really study that dude, I'll really study this dude, you really study that other dude. And for a lot of the classes, we knew in advance what the questions would be. You needed to come ready to explain. And so I would sit like, I don't know, 2 weeks before the final or whatever with these guys, and I'd be like, tell me about that guy. And they would just tell me the story, right? They would just like tell me this narrative about whoever, right? Kierkegaard, whatever. And I'll be like, okay, I think I get it. Let me see if I got that. So he and then he did this, and then he disagreed with that dude. And is that right? And then and he would be like, yeah, that's exactly right. And so we would just like go in circles doing that. And like that was studying for final exams for me in undergrad.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
That was so much fun.
I was sorely ill-equipped for law school thereafter.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a rude awakening, but at least I got to have fun in undergrad and do something that didn't get me burnt out.
That prepares you for law school. And
tell me about that.
That's what I did, a pre-law certificate. You know, I had taken con law before I had gotten there, and I had done flying colors. I did philosophy, and people might think it's easy, but it is tedious. You know, you do need to sit there and think and write, and like on top of that, with the pre-law certificate, you had to do certain other classes. But nothing prepares you just because it's just so different. It's a resilience type of education. Like you have to plan yourself out accordingly. You have to have the mental capacity. You have to understand that the drive is not going to take you as far as you think. Okay, you're going to have to there are going to be days where you have no drive, but you're still going to have to go and figure it out. And
you got to rely on discipline, not motivation, for sure. And practice is that way.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you get up and it doesn't matter what the client is paying, you know, how important the case is to your reputation or career, you know, how much you want to show opposing counsel that you're right and they're wrong. You know, it takes a similar, I think the education does that, which is it's inherently competitive because you have a curve. And that drives output, and you have to show up and just do the work, you know, and there's no you know, now we have all these nifty tools with AI and stuff, and that's good. I think you could be more efficient that way, but there's no substitute for just doing the work.
There isn't. That finals month is hard.
And you just went through this because you're just starting your second year.
I am starting my second year.
Right. So the first year is not a distant memory. It is very much a fresh wound.
I'm still quite traumatized. I always tell people, I'm like, if I had to do 1L again, I'd go back to nursing.
That's interesting. That's hilarious. Well, listen.
And you know what? It could have been way worse. But again, it's just that first year, especially if you're on scholarship, you know.
It's stressful, right? Because there's like a chance where you could lose it. I know at FIU, there's not like a certainty that you still have it next year.
Mine is not conditional, so I just have to keep my GPA above a good standing. But a lot of people have these 2.5s, 2.7s, and we're on a C curve. So you get straight C's, you're already pretty much losing your scholarship.
Oh, wow.
So it's like your heart is just pumping the entire semester. You don't know your grades. It's one exam. But we made it through.
So you got skin in the game, which is also what the which is also what practice is like, right? So there's skin in the game, right? There's money at issue, right? But that's the type of stuff, like when I leave a hearing, like I'm like, I love that. I love doing that because it makes you feel alive.
Yeah,
it's competitive. I'm competitive.
Nothing feels better than opening up that god awful portal from my school. And then you have to wait those like 10 seconds it takes to like refresh, and then the first thing you see is your GPA before you can put the drop down into your grade. So you already automatically know whether your GPA moved up or down or stayed the same. You're like, oh. But then I remember my first exam that I passed, like the first exam I took was civil procedure. And when I got that grade, I cried for like 20 minutes. It felt like a weight lifted off my chest. And then I felt like the baddest person in the room for the rest of the day.
That's amazing.
Yeah, of course. But that's the thrill of like this field is just, it's really hard. But when you come out of it, you feel like you're alive again. Yeah. So
very rewarding, very rewarding. So that's amazing. So we're through undergrad. You did philosophy. You're in law school now. Just finished your first year, starting your second year. I know you're busy. I can tell you're busy. Well, I'm trying not to slam you. And thank you for showing up today and doing the legal research. But I can tell second year's not easy either. You know, it depends on how like crazy.
It's adjusting.
Yeah, it's crazy. You know, some people really make it crazy for themselves. At least at the school I was, or some people that would do like journal and moot court, and they were on some like diversity club, and you know they were just like trying to get crazy.
And Rosa Law has me all to themselves.
Amazing. I mean, selfishly I love that. So thank you. So that's, you know, but it's still, you know, there's enough there to learn what you need to learn, the core of what you need to learn, and so okay. I think I'm good with that. So maybe perhaps with that we can pivot into a little bit of the topic for today.
Yes.
Last time was a little bit of a snoozer. I mean, Evelyn made it as fun as it could be.
She's so good.
She's so good. She's so good. But Civ Pro, again, not fireworks, right?
But she loves that. She loves the procedural aspect of things. So good for her.
It's like the game stuff. And you know, to be fair, you win and lose often on procedure, right? There's
procedure in what we're going to talk about today.
100%.
So
100%. And so let's get into it. So today, it's a matter of, it's a super popular matter here in Miami.
Yes,
there's a lot of building. There's a lot of construction. There's a lot of people that show up like, hey, I know how to do roofs. Like, who does roofs? I'll do a roof. I'll get on a roof and I'll start, you know. And it's not always.
Yeah.
They don't always check what the requirements are to do this type of thing.
So it's funny because, you know, my fiance is a roofer.
Right. He owns a roofing company.
Yes.
Okay.
So he talks about it all day. They call them los piratas. The unlicensed roofing contractors, they're called piratas. And he's like, you can spot them a mile away.
How does he spot them? What are the characteristics of a pirata? Do they come with a little black flag with the skull and bone?
I think that it's more of like the type of tools they're using, the type of rundown truck. You know, like usually they won't have like a name and a number on their truck. It'll kind of just be like really low key. You know,
you gotta be low key
if you stop and you're like staring at them for too long, they kind of like pack up and leave where they're at, because they know that they're not supposed to be doing what they're doing, and if somebody calls them,
right,
that'll be a problem.
But it's not just like, because here let's put for like, let's kind of bring it home right off rip, right? So let's say, you know, you're a well-meaning person, you come to the United States, you want a better life, you know, you don't want a handout, you want to work hard, right? There's not much harder work than getting on a roof at noon and fixing whatever needs to be fixed up there. Okay. So there's, you know, there's a lot to be respected of these individuals that, you know, come and do that. You know, me and you both coming, I mean, me literally being born in Cuba and you know, your family coming from Cuba, we understand. And so there's a fact pattern in which, you know, these people come, they're qualified. There may even be engineers where they're from. They have relevant experience. They get hired by, they may not even know they're doing anything wrong, right? They may open an LLC, you know, Pirata LLC, right? And they just happen to do roofs, and they're like, look, I'm not going to break any laws. I'm going to work with GCs, right? A GC is licensed. I don't need to be licensed. I'm just a roofer. And
in a way, they're almost not wrong.
They're almost not wrong, right? So you could see,
but,
they're not even necessarily wanting to do anything wrong. Imagine they get hired by a GC, they get hired to do work on a roof. It's the GC's license. The GC's allegedly overseeing it, but a little, not too much. And there's a written contract that says they're gonna get paid no matter what. And they do 6 figures worth of work, right? These roofs are expensive, right? So they might do 2, 3 roofs. They're good at what they do. So this GC uses them over and over again. And this GC builds up, a couple $100,000 in debt, right, to this pirata. And, one day the GC decides, look, my bottom line doesn't make sense. I'm not going to pay whoever it is.
Spoiler alert, this doesn't end well.
I'm not going to pay whoever it is, right? And someone calls you like, look, I have a contract. I did the work. I paid my employees. Why shouldn't they get paid? Right? It seems incredibly unfair. Right? But what's the law, right? Come on, bring it in with the punchline. Do they get paid? Yes or no?
That's
they
why
don't,
I said,
right?
spoiler alert, this doesn't end well for Pirata LLC.
Right.
The reasoning behind that, again, just like going back to philosophy and understanding both sides, you feel bad because they did a good job. All the permits, everything is going fine. There's really no reason for them not to get paid in certain instances. But the thing is that public policy, is very important here. And we can't have like people running around without licenses and us not being able to, punish them. Almost.
That's a good point, right? Which is the regulators.
We need someone that is educated, that has their license, went through a course, they know what they're supposed to do. They know not to cut corners, or if they're cutting a corner, they at least know where to do it, where the roof is going to still stay on the structure of the house. So,
right. So, Tallahassee, it's not that they're mean, right? People making laws, it's not like they want people to work for free and they're mean, right?
No.
It's what's the public policy? Who are they trying to protect, right? At the end of the day, they're trying to protect the consumer, and they want to punish people for not doing things properly, right? Not going through the appropriate channels. And the way to do that is basically like not making the courts available to them. Like you're pretty screwed.
Yeah.
Even if you've done everything right and you file suit, your suit can be dismissed.
Yes.
Right.
Like the statute that we're looking at is 489.128.
Okay.
That one is pretty much saying that they're not going to get paid. No matter
what they do. No matter how well they did the roof, even if the GC was there and oversaw some of the things, even if they paid and they have damages, right? They have reliance damages because they did everything correctly. They're kind of SOL.
Pretty much, it's like there was no contract.
Right, because it's an illegal contract. It's an illegal contract.
So then a lot of these companies, they'll try to go through, their arbitration clause, like every good contract has. Before they even do that, the court's going to try and figure out, is there even a contract? Is any of this valid? Most likely, no.
So that's a good point. So let me pause there. So these contracts sometimes have arbitration clauses, alternative dispute resolution clauses that says before you go to the court, before anyone files suit, you have to go to an arbitrator. And so this tricks the parties into thinking like, I'm cool because even though the contract's illegal, I can get kind of a private court to adjudicate this dispute. But the upshot is if somebody files it, like basically it's a statement of claims in arbitration. But if someone files that, the other party can file to dismiss and move it to a court to have the court rule on whether the contract itself is legal based on whether the party is licensed, whether the plaintiff in this case is licensed. Is that what I'm understanding correctly?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sick. So let's talk a little bit about who enforces the law as it pertains to this stuff, right? So we have an agency here in Florida called the Department of Business and Professional Regulation.
Yes.
Kind of a long name.
Dealt with them a few times, yes.
we get calls, right? We get calls. We've represented, landlords,
All types of businesses.
but like contractors,
Mm-hmm.
subcontractors, HOAs,
Homeowners that the work doesn't get
right,
finished and they have nowhere else to go. They
right,
have no one else to talk to. Unfortunately, when we're looking at somebody unlicensed, it's no one's winning here in this situation. No one is winning. So it's just better to avoid this and try to seek the knowledge yourself, like educate yourself. Um, we have so many ways to find out this information nowadays that the risk isn't worth being unlicensed or dealing with someone unlicensed. And of course, there are situations where people don't always know that they're dealing with somebody that's unlicensed.
right.
And again, you need to search up who you're working with on the same website, the DBPR's online portal. You'll be able to find their. Oh, there's a fly.
There's something flying around.
Yeah.
It's okay. So it's that legal trope, right? Where lack of knowledge is not an excuse.
Yeah, it's not.
So if you're a market participant, the law is going to assume that you are either sophisticated enough or you have the means to buy the sophistication and get the advice of counsel.
Mm-hmm.
And like frankly, like some of these cases, we've done a decent job at resolving properly because you can kind of pull heartstrings, and some of them are so unfair that they get fairly advanced. But it is kind of a big stone wall. There's not much you can do if there was and not all work needs a license, right? So you can be like, if you're landscaping, okay,
a qualifying agent.
right?
You can.
So tell me a little bit about qualifying agents. What is that?
So a qualifying agent is a contractor that is licensed, and they're pretty much overseeing your work. They're pretty much handing you their license, and you're able to do the work. But they have to be there,
But this is Miami. Come on, let's be real. So what happens in reality? Come on, your fiance knows with these licensing agents or qualifying agents. So what ends up happening is people end up like renting out these licenses. They have who knows how many people that they're renting their license out to, charging some monthly fee, and they don't even know that
they have no idea what's going on.
Right.
And that's a problem for them too, because they will get as in trouble as the person that's unlicensed.
Right. So if a customer ends up unhappy, they file a complaint with the DBPR. Then the DBPR goes after the GC, like, why weren't you supervising or whatever?
They're trying to find accountability. They're trying to figure out where they can enforce and it's not fair. They need to figure it out. So they go to the qualifying agent. And again, the qualifying agent most likely has no idea who that person is, what they were doing, but that's the problem. The problem is that they should have known. They should have been present. Whoever wants to, the Chapter 489 of the Florida statute is going to tell you everything that the DBPR can do. It defines qualifying agent. It'll tell you that they're supposed to be supervising. And then the DBPR is going to be able to, go after that license and take it away. There's fines. There's all types of ways that they're gonna find a way to enforce it. Okay.
Yeah, I mean it's not gonna end well for the pirata, unfortunately, and the way, I mean, at least in my experience, the way the agency works, it's very pro customer, right? So it's gonna, and to be fair, they're also kind of they're lenient. I think they have they're not draconian. I think they have a working knowledge of how the sausage gets made, at least in my experience. So they're not like, like in these situations, like we've had clients who were general contractors and they were doing, like they were not always there. Let's say.
I mean, it's kind of hard. You have your own business to run, and then you also have to be overseeing this entire other business. Like,
right.
It's understandable, but it's not allowed. It's not
right.
The
And
law.
In my experience, the agency has been quite lenient, lenient, as long as you figure it out with the client and the client ends up happy. It's got to be pretty, at least in my experience, it's got to be pretty egregious for like licenses to get pulled, people to lose their ability to
be a reoffender. Like, you have to continuously do the same thing for them to. This isn't like, oh, you did this one wrong thing and we're gonna take your license. Maybe they'll fine you. They're definitely gonna start off with a fine.
But for clients, you know, just a customer who's like looking for a contractor, right? So the DBPR, like you said, it has a website, and then they have like license categories, so you can go on there and check like, is the person that I'm even dealing with a, you know, licensed roofer, or
is it in good standing?
Right.
Yeah.
And like I was saying earlier, not everything needs a license, right? Like if you're literally just mowing lawn, you don't need a license. But perhaps if you're doing more like intricate landscaping, setting up sprinkler systems and things like this, that kind of work does require licensing.
Yeah, of
and
course.
so there's some variety there.
You have to look into the chapter and pretty much see the scope of what, let's say, a roofing contractor does. If you're not within that scope, then you're not a roofing contractor. So there's really most likely no need for a license, let's say. Like you won't get in trouble for that work.
Right.
But if you're falling within that scope and you don't have a license, or you're not working with a qualifying agent and they're not within their scope to be doing what they're supposed to be doing, and then something happens with the homeowner, let's say, or with the contractor that's supposed to pay you, that's when these problems are gonna come back and bite you.
Right.
Is when,
because people do this for years in Miami,
years,
decades. They're successful, and not, you know, if they're you know, honorable and do good work, you know, they don't generally get in trouble.
Of course.
Until something hits the fan.
We're here asking for forgiveness right now. Okay, that's the mentality here. Is it'll be easier to ask for forgiveness later, but not necessarily. So.
Got it. So then, in terms of broader lessons and things, I mean, I think, I mean, I'm listening to the audience. There's probably going to be some contractors, some potential clients, maybe some lawyers that are dealing with this for the first time, and are a little bit surprised about, you know, how strict the law is in terms of licensing and being able to enforce those rights. You know, it is what it is. You know, there's not much of a way around it.
The DBPR is going to be your best bet, because the contract is most likely, you know, not real in the eyes of the law, and therefore you're not going to get very far there. But like all things, all cases are so different, and, you know, they have their own intricacies, so you'd have to consult an attorney. La Rosa Law, PA, in case you guys were wondering.
Any qualified attorney. But I think the point is look, if you're a subcontractor and you've been deceived by a general contractor into thinking that you had a contract when you didn't, they've probably violated some provisions themselves.
Yes, they have.
And so you may want to use that as leverage to try to reach a settlement. And the agency might help, although I've had mixed outcomes there. But it is a resource that you can tap into. Is there anything else that we want to add about contractors, roofing, it's licensing?
Also, even if you have the license, you have to make sure that you're doing just like attorneys have to do their required CLEs and stuff like that. These licenses also require continued education.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. So is that something that your fiance does sometimes, or maybe his family?
Yes, all of them. Imagine the entire family. They go to
roofing
school. Contractors. They're all GCs. So everyone in the family, even my sister-in-law, she is a licensed GC. She doesn't even use her GC right now, but she still keeps it up to date.
That's cool.
So it's important to do that as a consumer, as someone that's seeking to work with some sort of contractor. Do your homework. You know, don't just go with whoever's cheaper. Don't go with whoever's nicer. Look for what you care about, but also make sure that they're licensed, because it's not worth the headache. It's just not.
No, it really.
It could work out for you.
It really.
We're not saying that. I mean,
lo barato sale caro, they say, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, so I think with that, I think that wraps up the discussion, and in keeping with that theme about doing things right and making sure that we are protecting our interests and our clients' interests, we typically switch over to Sazón Completo now at this junction, where we do legal news, we do AI updates, and we do trends in disciplinary actions. And typically we do the disciplinary actions at the end. But I think, like I said, in keeping with that theme, maybe we start with that now. And so today we had a little bit of an issue come up at the firm. We had a little a little chisme. So I'm there. I am. I'm, doing my work. I'm litigating, and I have some discovery things happening. Right. I'm expecting a lot of documents, and we're doing some document review, and I get an email from a lawyer's email, and it's like, hey, here are the documents you requested, a link. Let me know if it works. If not, reach out to me. I'm like, okay, cool. I mean, it literally is coming from this guy's email. I think nothing of it. I click it. Boom. And my malware software pops up and is like, dangerous link. .ru. I'm like,
am I what?
Oh no. Oh no. This guy sent me a link to a Russian server. What is going on? So I reach out. I'm like, hey man, do you have a data breach, or like, should I send you a link to my box? What's going on? And he's immediately like, we got hacked on Friday. Like, don't open the link. Thankfully, I had already, my malware software, Avast, shout out to Avast or Avast. It's really good, and it caught it, and it interrupted the transmission. But this is basically a phishing attempt, right? Where, had I opened that and had I not had the right malware solution, perhaps they would have, accessed my computer somehow, had access to confidential information. And as attorneys, what do we have a duty to? Keep what confidential?
Everything that has to do with the client.
I know. And that extends to everything that we use, right? Our cloud softwares, our computers. And so this is what we want to talk about, because it's becoming a real issue. I was looking at some statistics in preparation for today's episode, and it's something like 1 in 3 firms report data breaches.
I've been somewhere else that same exact scenario has happened to me. They've literally sent a link from my email out to other firms and other places.
Oh wow.
And whatever firm clicked that link.
Yeah, it's the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah, so it'll keep going on a loop.
My
and then
God.
whoever clicked that link, I guess they take that email and then they send it out to their directory.
Oh no. And then they just keep collecting.
Yeah.
So it's
a problem, because we had to close. We had to make sure everything, we had to bring our IT guy, make sure nothing crazy happened, like what type
This
of
was not at our firm. This was at a different firm that you were at. Let's be clear.
I think you would be aware.
I'm just making the audience aware.
No. I'm just saying that it's something that's
it could happen to anyone. It can happen to
Yeah.
anyone. Right.
Yeah.
And like you said, there's like duties that are imposed by the Florida bar, and I think that there's a Florida statute. I think it's the FIPA. I think it is, right?
Florida Information Protection Act.
Oh my God, I love acronyms. Huh? I don't know what is it about lawyers and
FIPA.
acronyms.
FMLA.
And it requires that you notify like all of your clients, right? That there's been a data breach within like 30 days or something like that.
And then if it passes 500, you have to tell the Attorney General, I think.
How embarrassing.
Yeah, the Florida Attorney
Can
General.
you imagine? Hey guys, I got owned. Like, you shouldn't trust me. That's that's not an email anybody wants to write.
No, because you expect to have a shield around like your firm, like they're giving you this information. They expect you, it's sacred information. You have to like keep it in a crypt. So
and we do our best.
And even if you do your best, things happen, and the problem is not the breach, it's what you do after the breach. That's pretty much what FIPA is trying to avoid, trying to enforce, is what did you do? Did you not notify anyone? Did you not tell the Attorney General? Because there's breaches all the time. Like, how many times do you not get a text message saying like, oh, change your password, your information, whether it was Equifax or one of these other places, like, it happens. I get a phone call every day telling me that my car insurance, this and that. I don't even have a car. So what car insurance?
So reasonable steps, right? Reasonable steps. That's sort of the term of art. That's what we need to take prior to a breach, right? And so that means like 2-factor authentication on everything, on your whatever cloud, on email. Be mindful on email not to share
not
what
to click
otherwise
anything
be.
that doesn't make sense. If you haven't been communicating with someone, there's no reason for them to be sending you a link. Call them. You might be doing them a favor by calling them, like you did.
Yeah, but it's wild. It's wild. I've seen some cases. So first of all, I get this all the time. a potential new client that needs an agreement to sell some oil rig somewhere in Florida, right? Some oil rig, or he's got some $1 million shipment coming in from wherever. And what I always do now that we have AI tools, because these guys are all using a script, so I take the script, I go to ChatGPT, I go to the research mode, and I go, hey, I just got an email from a potential new client, we call them PNCs, that says this. Assess the risk that that's a phishing email before I even respond, right? Because I'm like potentially listening to this, or some young attorneys that are like hungry and are excited about a potential lead like that, right? And so these turn out to be escrow scams. So if they're like, oh, write me a retainer agreement, then this never happened to me, but I looked into it before this. They send you a check for whatever, like $10,000, $20,000. The check turns out to be a fraudulent check, but it clears short term. So they send you the check, you put it in the escrow account for that client because you're going to do this big thing. You think you have a new client, you're so happy, whatever. And the check clears. It's the next day. And there's $20,000 in your escrow account. And you're like, okay, cool. I guess I'm going to go do some legal work. And then the client reaches back out and they're like, hey, actually, never mind. I need that money back. Wire it to whatever, some account in Nigeria, right? Or not, like some account not in Nigeria. Let's say, I don't know why I picked them. There are a lot of scams there, but whatever. So you wire it, right? So I've seen some attorneys wire these funds because they think, well, it cleared. And then what happens is, like, on the third or fourth day, when the banks realize what happened, the funds get withdrawn from the escrow account, which, by the way, overdraws the escrow account, and the Florida bar gets notified, right? This is what we talked about last time, which was escrow accounts, IOTA accounts. So what a nightmare, right? Now you're having to explain to the Florida bar that you got scammed, potentially out of everybody's escrow funds in your account, right? Let's say you had 3 other clients that each had $5,000. You got a check for 20. You started doing legal work. Then you sent a wire because you were like, oh, the client needs the money. Whatever. I'm going to give it back. That's my duty. And then he wipes out all the money of all the other clients.
A nightmare.
What a nightmare, right? What a nightmare. And then I've had some cases where people have been given like a link to send a wire and even gotten a phone call from somebody that sounded like who they expected.
Yeah, it's a scary time to live in.
Because they used AI to spoof the voice or whatever, and they're like, hey, you got to send X amount, whatever. And these guys will sit on information knowing that you have a deal coming up, that you're closing, especially title agencies, I think are particularly susceptible to this because they always have multiple transactions going on, and they're like multiple 6-figure, sometimes 7-figure transactions. And these guys bide their time until there's a big enough transaction. They reach out and they're like, hey, send this wire here. And so you have to like be like, okay, that's weird. Have the light go off in your head and call the actual number that you know to be that client's number or whatever to see like, hey man, did you send me instruction to send some wire or whatever? And I mean, typically banks are a little bit better about this once they realize like the extent of the fraud. And I know the FBI has got some data on this, but it's getting crazy out there, is it not?
Yeah. And I also feel like within a firm, like, for example, you handle the IOTA, right? Some firms, they have other people handling those accounts, like they delegate that to somebody else, and that person's light may not go off.
For sure. And
then again, that's where more problems come about. You have to kind of educate not just yourself, but you have to educate everyone at your firm, because if it doesn't matter whether it was you or them, you're still the one that's gonna get the disciplinary act. Like a legal assistant working in the back isn't gonna get a disciplinary act. So
right. And so, but we already spoke about some steps you could take, right? So you got to take reasonable steps. You got to make sure everybody's secure. You could do phishing training. You could have, there's insurance policies.
Yes, there is.
That cover this type of thing specifically. And what's cool about insurance policies that cover cyber, and we have this, is they have experts that they use when breaches occur. So you already have like a kind of a Rolodex. You're not wondering like, oh, who do I call or whatever, right? There's sort of a baked in action plan to the policy of what happens if you file a claim and what are the things that you do. I know there's other things called ransomware attacks, right? Where they steal your data, and they tell you, hey, look, we're not going to give you your data unless you pay X amount of crypto, X amount of Bitcoin or whatever. And I know that a lot of insurance policies won't, like the policy is you don't pay the ransom in a lot of the policies. So you have to, have backups or whatever the case may be. And you have to
know that it's not the same insurance that you have for your like practice or for your license. It's a completely different one.
Yes.
And then some firms think that it's like a little luxury to have these things, that you don't necessarily need them. And maybe a few years ago you didn't.
Right.
But now I don't really think it is a luxury.
The funny thing is they're not even that expensive, and it's not about the real scary thing is, as I sit here today, it doesn't feel like to me like it's if it happens, it's when it happens.
Yes.
Like it will, if the office gets sufficiently large and there's sufficiently like a sufficiently high number of moving parts and people on the
radar,
team,
of course,
and not everybody works from home, so you can't keep everything like air gapped, or that's not the right term, but you can't keep everything controlled in terms of security because everybody's got their own laptop, so they may not have the same security solution. Although I'm looking into getting AVAS now for everybody in the firm because I'm like, man, that thing caught this malware thing. What happens if you would have gotten that same message or someone else would have gotten that same message and it would have been a problem. So I'm starting to think about like, okay, what can we do to take even more steps than just reasonable steps? How can we be hyper vigilant about this? Which it's not fun to have to do, right? It's worse than CLEs, but not that we hate CLEs or anything. Those are lovely when we have to do them every now and again. You don't know this yet.
I'm already used to.
You're getting hit by the main leads. Yeah. Okay, so with this data breach thing, so we covered the phishing, we covered the ransomware, we covered the escrow scams. These are things that are fairly common.
Yeah, and honestly, for anyone that's trying to figure out like more information, they want to go more in depth into this, it's a quick bar search. Like you go on the bar's website and they will give you they will tell you what tools are available, what you can do. I think they call it Legal Fuel.
Yeah, well, Legal Fuel's got a lot of resources on this.
So they can go directly there.
And a lot of it is free.
And again,
especially for young lawyers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we get those young lawyer discounts and a bunch of resources on there. They've been kind of clutch. I know at the beginning of the firm, even for things like retainer agreements and like, oh, let me see a draft of this, and so that's a great resource. So okay, moving on with Sazón Completo. So we did this disciplinary action. All right, now you have your choice. You have your choice. Shall we do the legal news? Okay, shall we do the legal news? Or should we do an AI update? An AI update. I know that you don't have that in here, but I've got some things to talk about. So what would you prefer to do? I know that we have a very interesting case. Last time we talked about the case between Insomniac and the owners of Space nightclub. We got to do a post-mortem on that because I think that's moved on a little bit. They've done a little bit of motions practice on that. So I'm going to wait a little bit a while until there's been a little bit more movement on that case before we do a follow-up. But we have a different case today.
Yes, we do. It's a Google antitrust.
Oh, how fancy.
Yes.
Fancy smancy talking about antitrust over on the podcast. Oh my God. Well, listen, it's AI related, right? It's AI adjacent.
I feel like everything
now
is pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me about the so we'll preface this by saying like we don't do antitrust litigation, right? We're not so fancy to think that we're gonna.
We just like a chisme.
We like a good chisme, right? We thought, hey, look, this is interesting, and so I guess maybe I'll give a little bit of background. So I started following this case early on because
I think it started in 2020.
It did. It started in 2020 when it seemed like Google was just this juggernaut. I mean, it still is. But I mean, it's like word search. It's YouTube. It's, what isn't it? It's everything that you use to log into. It's everything that you use to advertise. It's Google Maps. I mean, it was just like this, right? It's just like the overlord, right? The typical.
I mean, no hate towards Google at all. I love
We love
Google.
Google. We love Google. We really do. But it seemed to me like in 2020, it seemed to me clear that it should be broken up. It seemed to me like YouTube should be a separate business from the ad business.
Yeah, they have too much control.
It felt that way.
That's pretty much.
And that's what the regulators are looking for in a
Yeah.
case like this. Okay. And so 2020, well, anyway, they get sued.
Yeah, so
Okay.
it was 11 state attorneys that brought it with the DOJ.
Okay. And it was looking like they were going to lose early on. And then luckily for them, these cases take a long time to litigate, huh?
Yeah, I think 2024 is when it when there was a ruling, and then 2025 now is when they're like issuing the remedies.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so let's talk
with
a little
Judge
bit of
Meta, by the way, which is funny because
that is crazy. But is it spelled the same way, or
No,
is it ends with an H?
It's MEHTA. If I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, I apologize.
Okay. Got it. Okay, well that is kind of funny. That is kind of funny. But she did a tremendous job. Right? I think it's a woman. I could be wrong about that.
I too can be wrong about that.
Okay, well I think they did a tremendous job. I skimmed over some of the reasoning, but it seemed very prescient. Like it seemed very up to date. It was a relief to see a court kind of take into account the facts on the ground, right? And say like, okay, it's not 2020 anymore. There are other players in the field. Google has mostly lost its search monopoly.
Oh yeah.
Right? Because now we all go to the AI overlord. You know who it is. I'm not going to say who.
Now even Google's trying to catch back up by now. Like whenever you make a little search, they kind of, before the little links, they have kind of like a little bar there where they generate an AI response to you. So it's a little bit faster.
Have you noticed? I think this is like very recent, like as of 2 weeks ago or so. Maybe this could be kind of our AI update. But as of 2 weeks ago, if you have Google Chrome, do you have Google Chrome on your MacBook?
I do.
Okay. If you go to Google Chrome, on the top, when you go to the address bar, like to go put a website or whatever to do a Google search, it has like a little arrow now hovering there. And if you hit tab and you search whatever you're going to search, it goes straight in, it does an AI search rather than a standard Google search. Yeah.
I haven't noticed that.
Ah, viste.
You see, because at my house, I just use my Stream Deck. I press my buttons.
Just fancy schmancy.
I press chat.
Yeah.
AI
You already know. Yeah, no, I think what they're doing, which I think is smart, is, and I frankly don't know why they hadn't done it before, because OpenAI is just running away with the trophy at this point. I think they have something like 90% market share, which is just, listen, people go to YouTube, people go to Google still, even, as an intermediary. So why not just put AI in the face of whoever's already, like, just make it super convenient. And I think it's kind of what they're doing. But going back to the case, the court found, and I think correctly so, that things had shifted. Google is not the juggernaut that it was in 2020. It's losing market share in this ad revenue thing. There was already a sort of a class action on its ad revenue, where they found that there was some fugazi. There was some interesting stuff going on with the clicks, right? With the pay-per-click, right? That pay-per-clicks weren't being as accurate as some thought that it was, and so there's been some paying back of clients in that space. So what did we think, overall about the judge's reasoning, and also is there anything that you noticed specifically, anything interesting that they mentioned, that they analogized to, or anything like that?
Well, I mean, they're trying to level the market,
right?
They're trying to find a balance without making it kind of like not make sense, because the dominance that Google had in 2020 and before that, it's not the same. So how are they going to reprimand them for something that's no longer? It's basically not moot, but it's not the same. So I think that Meta, hopefully, Judge Meta, if I'm saying that correctly, I think she did a phenomenal job. I think that by narrowing the rules now and kind of creating that field, it's giving the opportunity for the other, I think it was Mozilla.
Yeah, like so one part of the whole thing is that they would be, some things would be broken up.
Yeah.
And so there is a little bit of a fostering of competition with other search engines. So it wasn't like a flat out victory for Google. There was a little bit of balancing the scales there. They had to give up some
data access.
Yes. So that's interesting. It wasn't as one-sided as I initially recalled. Nice. Okay. So I think that's good enough, I think, for our legal update. And in terms of the AI updates that I have, man, so there's this podcast that I listen to. It's this guy that I've been listening to for a long time, which is Sam Harris, now a little bit more controversial than before. Have you heard of that name, Sam Harris? It's one of those names
I've heard the name.
Yeah, so he's a Stanford PhD in neurology, but he spent quite a bit of time out east, like, I guess what can only be summarized as learning how to meditate. And so he's got this app called Waking Up, and it's really quite good. And I've been listening to his podcast, which used to be I think Waking Up. Now it's called Making Sense. And he recently had a guest on, a guy called Eliezer Yudkowsky, I think it is. And they have a book out called, they just released it, called If Anyone Builds It, We All Die. I think that's the title of the book.
Wow, that's like every night terror I've
ever. I was like, oh my God, like what a title. I mean, I'm sure it's selling. And I listened to the podcast episode, and it was like, it's about the arms race, right, that's going on with AI. And, and they were just kind of going through in very philosophical, just matter of fact demeanor, like why people should take seriously like pumping the brakes. And pumping the brakes doesn't really mean like getting rid of GPT-5, right? You can still have ChatGPT, right? Pumping the brakes, I think in this context, means let's like stop the arms race, right? Let's stop the race to like AGI, right, or artificial general or super intelligence, and some of the consequences there. And it was interesting too to hear the sort of counterintuitive scenarios that they've thought up, right? These are two very clever guys. And things like, I don't know, the AIs print solar panels and cover the sun and we all die, or like they make too many like whatever servers and they like fry up the atmosphere, like just crazy stuff. But in a world where AI, right now it's just a chat box, right? It's a very clever chat box that we use often. But in a world in which they are interfacing physically and have control over atoms, right? If they can just do whatever they want and they're smarter. And this is something that this goes back to like philosophy. Like I actually did my senior thesis. There's this guy called Nick Bostrom. Have you heard of him?
Bostrom. Yeah,
so he's got a book on this. He's kind of like the first book that came out on this. I think it came out like 2012. And I did my senior thesis on the ethics of AI back in 2014.
That's crazy. I did mine on like Iron Man.
What about Iron Man?
Utilitarianism and Iron Man.
That's interesting. So tell me. So what's the relevance to ethics? Is it Iron Man as a figure and what it's supposed to mean?
Yeah, pretty much. The idea of a superhero making these decisions for like the greater good and whether or not it's like altruistic. It just talks about themes of ethics because it was from my ethics class. And how Iron Man, like what role Iron Man takes and whether his actions are permissible or they're not, because at the end of the day, he's not abiding by the law. He's not part of the law. He's just this singular person.
What do you recall? I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but do you recall what you concluded? What side do you fall on?
I put
you pro Iron Man or what?
No, my last line was, It depends.
Oh my God. And with that lovely line, I think we'll close. Right? Isn't that just what we live by? It depends. Ladies and gentlemen, it depends. Melissa Corrales and Jesus La Rosa, and we'll see you all next time.
And then we just drop the mic.
That's it. We got to drop the mic on that one. Thank you so much for being here. Amazing.